Hi everybody, my name's Sandy, alcoholic. Been through this process with a Big Book Step Study sponsor. I'm making amends, work the ladder steps on a daily basis. I don't need a mic. I got a really big mouth. I know we have microphone issues. Use it? You guys might not like it. You guys all set?
Yeah.
All right. I'm actually a backup for today, so if you have a resentment, her name's Donna. She comes from Concord, New Hampshire, and she couldn't drive in today because of the weather. So put her on your list. Like I said, we're powerless over the weather, right? I'm her backup anyways. I ask God for help like I do every day. So I can only carry a message of my experience, pretty much is my experience. It's funny we're on step one. I actually, my last relapse was Christmas Day of 1994, and my sobriety date is January 22nd, 1995. And I don't want to forget that day. I was a chronic relapser. I couldn't put time together. I bounced in and out of AA for like 4 years. And I only got like any time if I was in like a halfway house. I'd get a few months together. But on this particular day, January 21st, was the last day I used. And the disease that, this disease that we have, this alcoholism, I remember I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, and like I said, 4 years before I got sober in 1991, and I was having a problem. I was definitely having a problem. I had a house, I had an apartment with some, things in there, TVs and stuff. And I had a job. I had never been to a detox or a halfway house. My parents really didn't know the depth of what was going on in my life. And pretty much what this book is telling us is, my disease kept getting every single time I picked up. Even though they told me what was going to happen if I picked up. All those things were going to happen to me eventually. They all happened eventually. And by 1994, I had been in a couple detoxes, 4 of them to be exact, and a few halfway houses. Never graduated. And I was pretty much, by this time I was pretty much homeless, jobless, and penniless, and the disease of addiction was killing me. The allergy. Pretty much the allergy. I couldn't stop using. Every time I relapsed, it was worse. My body just wanted to make up for every day I didn't use. They told me that in my very first detox, that most people die in a relapse. The body of the alcoholic will try to make up for every day that it hasn't had anything in it. And I never really experienced it in my relapses because I couldn't put time together. So like if I had a month or 2 months, the relapse wasn't so bad. But on the last relapse, I had been in a halfway house for longer than usual. And then I stayed clean and sober for a little bit of time at my parents' house. But I had put together like 6 months. And that relapse was a killer. That was my killer relapse. And I don't want to forget that. I was pretty much homeless, jobless, and penniless, like I said. My disease had progressed from like 13 years old of smoking weed and stealing pills from people's medicine cabinets and drinking in the woods to full-blown smoking crack, living off the streets and mostly in Great Brook Valley. So I was in Great Brook Valley on January 21st. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. I had run out of drugs. I had sold my car. I had rented my car out to the drug dealer. It was pretty cold out, like today. Being a good alcoholic, I started to manipulate. How am I going to get my car back? And somehow I got the drug dealer to give me a ride somewhere, and he was stupid enough to run into a store and leave my car running. And I jumped in the driver's seat, and I looked up at the sky, and I never said this ever, never in all my relapses. I said, please, God, get me out of here. I don't want to live like this anymore. That was my surrender. I drove home to my parents' house. I didn't have a home. I had 2 parents that were enabling that didn't know anything about the disease of alcoholism or drug addiction because I don't come from that. They know all about control, though. And And I looked at that look on my mother's face. And at this time of my parents' life, I'm 32 years old. My parents are probably in their 60s. And I can tell you that they were not leaving the house together, ever. They went to church separately. They went shopping separately. Because back then there was no cell phones. I was the youngest, the only girl, and they had no idea on a daily basis if I was dead or alive. The disease was killing me. So what I did was I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't call detox. I didn't call a halfway house. I went to a meeting in Upton, and then on Sunday I went to the famous Holy Name meeting. Hope Ave meeting. Back then, a lot of people. But there was a particular woman I was looking for. She was a relapser. She had like 9 years. It was the first time ever I approached a woman and said, "Can you help me?" She gave me the basics of AA for a few months until other people, what? I don't know about you, but God puts in exactly the people that needs to be in your life exactly at the same time. I got sober by a woman eventually that I got my solid foundation from a woman that was all about, she could care if you cried, she hurt your feelings, she didn't give a shit. She just didn't want you to die from alcoholism. And I was a street addict, and I needed to be told, I needed to be more afraid of Mary O than I was to go to Great Brook Valley. Pretty simple. And that's what happened for me. And I can tell you, recovery didn't come from that. A solid foundation in Alcoholics Anonymous came from that. Not picking up the first drink. The obsession is going to kill me. It's going to bring me to the first drink, the first drug. But that is what's going to kill me. That is the phenomenon of craving. Once it's in my system, I am off and running. I am going to die. This is what he's talking about. This is what Dr. Silkworth knows about. Like in this book here, I have all my, I would write down all the definitions and reread them, I remember my sponsor at my Big Book Step Study sponsor, when I got her, I was 9 years sober. You want to see the second part of this step, the unmanageability? All you need to do is see a picture of Sandy in Alcoholics Anonymous at 9 years sober. Managing her own life. Because this first part is the only part I can do 100%. I am alcoholic and I am a drug addict, and I cannot use in safety. I need to surrender. I need to admit powerlessness. I need to own it. Without that, there's nothing else that's going to work for me. I can't go forward. That second part that you guys are going to read, that's the unmanageability. That's me trying to control my life in every other area except for alcoholism. I don't want to admit that I need power. He drills that home over and over again that you need a power greater than yourself. You're powerless. And I can tell you, it took years and years of recovery for me to get to that part, that second part. And that second part, without that, eventually you could drink again, and you could. I believe I can drink again too. I might be coming up on 30 years of sobriety, but I have a day. That's all I have. I have one day, and I can use again, and I can die from this disease. And the sponsor I have today is probably where I got most of my real recovery from. And I can tell you a funny story about it. I was only with her for like a year. It was a few years ago. I listened to K-Love. It's like the only thing I listen to. And it was talking about Lent and how you should pick something, instead of giving up candy, all the stuff you're never going to give up, all that stuff. And it said maybe you should give up like a defect almost, like it's kind of what they said, a defect of character, right? So I was like, that's a good idea. I wonder which one I should work on. So I sent my sponsor this time. She had only known me for a few months, but she picked up really quick about Sandy. And I sent her a text and I said, hey, what do you think's my major defect of character that I could work on? And she didn't want to answer that question because she likes you to find your own answers. So I didn't get an answer. So then I tell her the story about Kayla in the text, right? Thinking, I wonder what the defect's going to be. And she answers it with the word power. I was like, It's not even on my list. You know, because I can't even see that I practice that in all areas of my life, and I become so unmanageable. You know, and when I came to Big Book Step Study at 9 years of sobriety, there was a guy, and I don't remember, I think his name was Butch. He was from Boston, and he said, at the end of every step, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, and our lives are unmanageable, sober, because we're taking these steps in sobriety, you know. So, you know, to me, I don't speak a lot at these types of meetings. I have a Big Book Step Study sponsor. I've never had anybody but a Big Book Step Study sponsor since I've done the steps. I mostly go to regular AA. I'm looking for, I go to a meeting on Thursday night in West Boylston, which I just believe is all about really showing the newcomer that there is hope here, that we are powerless, that there is a way out. And if it wasn't for somebody that did this work and did not come to Alcoholics Anonymous, I would have died from untreated alcoholism. And I can't emphasize that enough. You know, my sponsor who brought me through this, she said the firing line of AA for the sick and suffering is in the halls of Alcoholics Anonymous, the open meetings. The meetings where people are coming in dying from the disease, the physical body part, and then the ones with long-term sobriety that are suffering, sober suffering, that second part of this step, which was me at 9 years of sobriety. I probably would have died I probably would have relapsed because I was on my way out, honestly, because I didn't have a solution. So if you're in here and you're new, there's hope here. You know, I can honestly tell you I have not thought about a drink or a drug since I did this work with that sponsor. But the first 9 years of my sobriety, it was always an option, always. And I've had cancer. Both my parents have passed away. I've changed jobs. It's never been even a thought. Not even a thought. I can't. It's as foreign to me to pick up a drink or a drug, to think of it as a solution, as it was when I was struggling with staying away from a drink or a drug, because I was so uncomfortable in my own skin. And that's it. Thank you.